I think the big winner, the one that everybody's talking about, is certainly Ole Miss. And I think that you're seeing the Rebels are gearing up for a big year in 2024. And I think it's, if you look at it this year, they would have been the 11 seed in a 12-team playoff for winning, 10 games. Obviously didn't play for the SEC title. They are aiming for much more than that next year, my dude. They've got, and it makes sense. I mean, they've got everybody coming back pretty much on offense. They've got a proven quarterback. They've got a real opportunity here to go contend, and more opportunity now with the expanded playoff. And so, they are chasing the best out there. They picked up Juice Wells, the wide receiver from South Carolina on Sunday, who I think is the best receiver available in the portal. A guy that was a first team All SEC guy in 2022, dealt with injuries last season, but that's a huge get for a team that really didn't need to add a whole lot on offense. They picked up two of the best pass rushers, edge defenders in the portal this weekend in Tyler Barron and Princely Umanmielen from Florida, Tyler Barron from Tennessee. And so those were huge. I mean, those are just SEC caliber guys that you can plug right into the lineup. They picked up a bunch of DBs. They picked up Chris Paul Jr. from Arkansas. They are feasting right now in the portal, Sam, and they're trying to add Walter Nolan, the consensus number one guy in the portal. They're trying to add him to that group. He visited Ole Miss over the weekend, and his dad. I like this quote. His dad gave an interview to 24/7 yesterday and said, "Ole Miss, they got something cooking. There is no question they got something cooking. They're going to be pretty good next year." So, Sam, what do you make of that? Does that strike you as, a little bit of, runaway hype train there, a little too early to say these things? Or do you look at what's coming back in these proven pieces and say, yeah, I could see it?
No, I mean, you get Jackson Dart, you got Quinshon Judkins, you got a lot of guys back off this team that went 10-2. And obviously, you don't have to win the SEC West next year because there's not going to be an SEC West. There's going to be no divisions anymore. And the path to the major postseason and trying to contend for a championship changes now. So if it's no longer, well, we can't win the West and, we're not going to be able to get in the playoff. Now you can. And like you said, if this season had happened, they'd be an 11th seed. You build this team up. And this, to me, and Ari and Dave kind of discussed this a little bit on Sunday. It's kind of you gear up and you're like, you know what? We've got a really good team. We got a chance to make a run for it. Let's go all in on 2024 and see what we can do. I don't think it's necessarily a runaway hype train. I think we're going to have a lot of this in the offseason because we've got 8-9 months to fill up. And so we'll talk about this a lot and narratives get to run away. We start crowning Texas Tech as the Big 12 champion or something as we did last offseason or as Dave Ubben did last offseason. But I think there's some validity here because it does seem like Lane Kiffin has raised the floor on Ole Miss. And now it's a matter of, can you take it another level? And when you are talking about adding some of these guys that they've added, and if you're able to add a Walter Nolan to that, buddy, that's a contender. That's a national contender that you're talking about. And so, it's early. Everything's got to work out. You got to get the guys to kick off in September, obviously. But I'm really impressed with what they've done in the portal. And I think it's not the way that you're going to do it every year. I don't think you can win like this every year. But if you want to put all your eggs in one basket for one season to take a swing at it, this is the way to do it. I think you kind of compare it in a way to major league teams. Like, hey, you know what? We've got this nucleus right now, and we got a chance to win something. Let's do everything we can. Let's make a trade at the trade deadline. Let's sign a big free agent and try to make a run this year because this is going to be our shot. When you have a window, take advantage of it. And this is part of the new reality of the portal. It gives you an opportunity to maximize those windows and improve your team a lot faster than you could before when you were just signing 25 high school recruits.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the schedule, I know it's not this simple, but I mean their non-conference Power 5 game next year is Wake Forest. They don't play Alabama in the regular season. They're replacing Alabama with Oklahoma. They're replacing Texas A&M with Kentucky. Like, I think the schedule looks easier next year than it did this year, and they won 10 games this year, obviously. So I think that it's pretty favorable, and yeah, I think it's especially nowadays the way that this is this is all kind of run in terms of the competition for the top guys in the portal. It makes sense when you kind of have that much coming back and that much confidence in the players that are already in the program. Like it makes sense for people to want to help donate to your collective and say, let's go buy some nice Christmas presents this year, right? Let's go, let's go.
Make it
This
a
is a good
December to
time to
remember.
invest, right? 100%. I mean, it's a worthy investment if you feel like, man, we're this close. We won 10 games, for the second time in 3 years here. So they are a contender, and then once you put this kind of a group together, then if you're a Walter Nolan, if you are these top guys, DeCamerion Richardson, the cornerback from Mississippi State, who like they're competing with like Oregon and LSU and all the big schools for him, like those guys are looking at what's going on and saying like, that seems like the hot place to be, and that can kind of help sway it possibly, in some ways. So really interested to see. Their Ole Miss is far from finished here, and I'm sure they'll take more in the spring too. But man, pretty dominant showing so far from them. I talked to someone on their staff who said this is the best month of recruiting in Ole Miss history, and it's not
Wow.
done. So we'll see how they close on signing day here, but lot of enthusiasm about what's going on down in Oxford.
Yeah, and they've had some moments in the past. We of course remember the Hugh Freeze era when they had that 2013 class with Robert Kimdiche and Larry Tunzel and Laquan Treadwell, and they ended up
On Treadwell.
they didn't
Good
win
memory.
an SEC title, but they beat Alabama a couple times, and they reached a level that hadn't been reached in a while in Oxford. So I think there's a lot of optimism there. When we look at the rest of the group in the portal, you see a team like Colorado, they've got 15 commits. They rebuilt their entire offensive line. They got some other intriguing guys. Louisville brought in a dozen guys. They've been busy bringing visitors in. They had Tyler Shuck, the quarterback from Texas Tech, who plugs in a big need there. You got TCU, who's got 8 guys, a little bit smaller numbers, but a lot of impact players. Who are the teams that have, besides Ole Miss, that have stood out to you in what they've done in the portal for the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, I would circle Louisville as one that I think has been pretty impressive. I mean, you have a lot of kind of the usual suspects here competing over guys that have recruited top portal classes before, but I think you saw Louisville struck. They were able to hit on the right kind of players last year going into year one out of the portal. Took Jamari Thrash out of Georgia State, took Jack Plummer from Cal. They've just picked up, Jawar Jordan was a guy that had also transferred previously. Like they were able to really hit on some good pieces, really all over their team over these last couple years, really, in terms of transfer portal recruiting, just to boost that thing and get it back to competitive in the ACC. And you saw that paid off in terms of competing for a conference title. I really like some of the players that they've been able to lock up so far. It was a big weekend for them. I think Colin Lacey, the wide receiver from South Alabama, one of the most productive G5 receivers in the country this year. Really liked that pickup. Ja'Cory Brooks is Alabama's second leading receiver a year ago, and he's going to go in there. And if a 5-star guy from Alabama is like a reclamation project, like probably not a bad risk to take if you're Louisville. Donald Chaney Jr., another guy who's caught in a stable of backs there at Miami. But a highly touted guy. I like the tight ends they've picked up. They flipped one of the better defensive linemen in Conference USA away from Minnesota over the weekend. They got Thor Griffith, Bruce Feldman's guy from the Freaks list from Harvard. I just really like what Louisville's done, and again, that's another one that is going to keep picking up commitments this week. And I think it's been reported they brought in at least 20 transfers for official visits here in the past couple of weeks. Like they are going hard on portal recruiting and trying to stay an ACC contender. So been really impressed by them. We'll talk TCU. I don't know how much Tyler's going to let us talk about some of the guys that are in their class of portal takes, but I do like what TCU's done. I think in terms of you're clearly seeing them taking a bunch of guys on offense to try to upgrade on that side of the ball. And I think Drake Dabney was one of the better tight ends in the Big 12 this year. I think Eric McAllister was the second leading receiver in Mountain West at Boise State this season before he left the team. So I think him, Braylon James is like that classic kind of like blue chip recruit who goes to a big school, leaves the state of Texas, goes to a big school in Notre Dame, and then a year later is like, okay, I want to come home. I want to come play for one of the home state schools. And so I think those kinds of guys you have a chance to really hit on. So I like what they've done, and we'll talk about that more with Tyler for sure. But there's just, there's some of these schools, Texas, Oregon, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia. There's some of these schools that are competing for the very best guys out there, and you expect that. You kind of know who they are every year. But to me, it's kind of like that second tier, and the programs like TCU, like Louisville, that can really, the guys that they go find aren't going to be as touted, but they could make the difference in terms of a couple wins if you put the right kind of class together. And if you whiff on them, then you're probably not going to be very good too. So there's some risk to it, obviously, but I'm always interested in kind of that mid-tier Power 5 program that's looking to take either G5 guys or maybe some FCS guys or kind of trying to find the turn over every rock and find the gems out here. There's more than 1,300 players in the portal just in terms of FBS scholarship players. So only 20% of them are committed so far. So lots of good ones still out there.
Yeah, that's the interesting part. And as we move into the 12-team playoff era, we've had this 14 playoff for so long, and you've had to recruit at a certain level. Like your high school recruiting had to be at a certain level to be in that mix. Now that's going to change with the 12-team, and then it makes me wonder if you're a team that recruits in the 20s or 30s, when you get enough of these impact guys, can you put yourself in that conversation, get yourself into that top 12, and then all of a sudden you're playing for national championships? That'll be fascinating to see.